Hey guys, Ben Dorr here, Executive Director with Minnesota Gun Rights. I've got some good news, I've got some bad news, and I'm going to break down Tuesday's elections. We'll keep it short and sweet. I want you to have all the details about what happened, I think about what's going to happen, and what we can do to defeat the radical left Democrats who are coming into power in St. Paul, who want to totally gut and stuff our Second Amendment rights, guys. Let me know where you're watching from, and let me know if the audio is okay. We were having some technical difficulties just a little while ago, and I want to make sure that it's working properly this time. So if the audio is cutting in and out, if it's not doing very well, please let me know. If it is, if it sounds great, if it sounds fantastic, please tell me that too. Otherwise, we're going to have to figure out what's going on our end, or if Facebook is just jerking us around, which they like to do. Starting it off, we have Garrett checking in, says, sounds good. We have Damia in Minneapolis. We have Big Dave says, no compromise in Lonsdale. Julia says, perfect audio this time. Glad you're back. Steve says, hello from the great big free state of Texas. We have Ralph and Anoka. Thank you guys for joining us tonight. I'm going to start off with the bad news. I'm sure many of you know this already. But obviously Tim Walz won re-election in Minnesota. I think that was always a high probability. It would have been a big lift for Scott Jensen to beat him. So I'm not surprised to see the outcome of that election. But the bigger surprise was that the House Democrats maintained their majority in St. Paul, and they still have the majority in the Minnesota House of Representatives. And the biggest surprise, although to some degree we're not surprised when the MNGOP fuds it up, but the Democrats flipped the Minnesota Senate and now have control of the Senate as well. So this gives the Democrats a complete trifecta in the Minnesota state government. Okay. So House, Senate, governor. And this is our big fight going into 2023. I just want to say, guys, if you have questions, drop them in the chat. If you want to know what the game plan is, we're going to talk about that here. If you want to know about specific races or about specific outcomes, let us know. And I'll do my best to answer all of these questions for you. But right out of the gate, again, they have the trifecta. So what does that mean? Of course, that means that gun control is on the docket for 2023, if the Democrats have the stones for it. I want to walk you through a scenario, okay? So the 2023 session kicks off in early January. All of these new senators, new state reps, and there's a whole slew of them. I think like almost 1/3 of the entire Minnesota State Senate is freshmen, people who've never been in the Senate before. So that's a huge number of brand new guys and gals who have to learn the ropes. And people, we're going to teach them. We're going to teach them the ropes. So what happened now and what we're doing going forward here is we have to target specific politicians, okay? That's what we have to do. I want to be very clear. Democrats have one vote majority in the Senate, okay? A one vote majority. That means that in order to pass red flag gun confiscations and universal background checks when session kicks off in January, they're going to need all of the Democrats to vote yes if all of the Republicans vote no. And how likely is that? Well, if you listen to some of the pundits, some of the so-called political experts, they'll tell you that Minnesota is likely going to shape up like Virginia did, right? So in Virginia, when Democrats took control of the legislature out there in 2019, what happened? Governor Blackface Ralph Northam rammed through with his Democrat-controlled legislature almost every piece of gun control that you can think of. Red flags, universal background checks, safe storage laws, waiting periods to buy firearms, the whole gambit, okay? And so people are sitting here going, well, Minnesota Democrats have pretty slim majorities, but they're probably going to just ram it all through like they did in the state of Virginia. Well, I want to be very, very clear to the Democrats who are watching this, to House and Senate leadership. Certainly, there is staff members watching this. We have something in the state of Minnesota that the state of Virginia doesn't have and did not have during the 2019 session, 2020 session, where they passed all of that gun control. In the state of Minnesota, we have Minnesota gun rights. Okay. We are the nastiest, hardest hitting, unforgiving, and long remembering gun rights organization in America. Okay. Out in Virginia, when they went to pass those gun control bills, even with their slim majorities, even with all of those people screaming about, no, don't pass the bills, they had Republicans who voted in favor of those gun control bills. Even Republicans in the state of Virginia didn't know or did not care about gun voters, 2A supporters, or any of the gun groups that were there. Because the gun groups in the state of Virginia, the Virginia Citizens Defense League, VCDL, were impotent. They had no balls for the fight. They didn't spend any money on the fight. They didn't target politicians. They didn't target them at election time. They didn't expose anybody. Philip Van Cleve, the geriatric who runs VCDL, sat by and did nothing. Nothing. He did not do the things you're supposed to do. And that is why even Republicans were willing to vote in favor of that gun control, because they knew that the Second Amendment organizations on the ground in Virginia were not going to do anything to them in the elections. That is not the case in the state of Minnesota. Minnesota gun rights has been here for a decade. We have punished brutally politicians at election time and during the legislative session for election cycle after election cycle after legislative session after legislative session. It's what we're well known for. And we will raise absolute holy hell against these people who come after our Second Amendment freedoms. We will leave no stone unturned. We will leave no penny unspent. We will create the list of politicians. We will target them for big time exposure during the legislative session and in any elections that follow. And so my message to those weak Democrats is I would think long and hard about your future in the legislature, about your desire to remain in power. And if you think that voting for extreme, unconstitutional, far-left gun control is the best thing for you and your political career, it's just something to think about. And as the days and the weeks go by, Minnesota gun rights will make sure you're thinking long and hard about it, because we are raising the Minnesota gun rights grassroots army, political army. In 2019, Democrats had the House in Minnesota. Tim Walz had just gotten into office, and the Rhino Republicans in the Minnesota Senate had a 1-vote GOP majority, and they were going to pass red flags. They were going to pass universal background checks. And the members and supporters of Minnesota gun rights sent 129,000 emails into the state capitol during that legislative session and shut it all down. And that is precisely what we're going to do now. Because the only difference between 2019 and this day is 1 vote, 1 seat in the Senate is the only difference. And unlike other organizations, unlike other activists, Minnesota gun rights never forgets. We never forget what politicians do to us Iron Range Democrats, suburban Democrats. If you vote against our Second Amendment, we will never, ever forget. And when election time comes along, we will expose you with everything we have. And unlike the other derps in the so-called pro-gun space in this state, we have vast members. Our members are generous, and they fund our operation. They fund our war chest. They fund the work that we do in large numbers. We are preparing. We are building our war chest. We are ready for this fight in St. Paul, and we will meet you head on, face to face, in person, in the halls of the Capitol, in the halls of the Senate office building, in the halls of the state office building, and you will have no rest, no peace, no relief from the pressure of gun owners in 2023. I promise. Okay? And if you think you can get it done, if you think you can pass the bills, give it your best shot, and so shall we. But I have a feeling if you do that, perhaps there's a possibility maybe that your majorities are very short-lived. This is where we are in Minnesota. Democrats have control of the entire legislature. There's a lot of states now where Democrats took control. It was not a good night for Republicans. It was not a good night for gun owners in a lot of places. But there are very few states, like I've said, in America who have organizations as well prepared, as well staffed, with the infrastructure and the manpower and the capability in place as Minnesota Gun Rights. And we're going to use every tool at our disposal in the year 2023 and that legislative session that kicks off here in just a few weeks. Guys, if you're watching this, if you want to be a part of this army, if you're not already, I encourage you to go to www.joinmgr.com. Become a member of Minnesota Gun Rights. Stand with us next year. We are going to lead this fight as we have done for years in the state of Minnesota, okay? And I want to be very clear. The NRA is not going to stop this legislation. GOA is not going to stop this legislation. SAF, FPC, NAGR, all of these so-called federal gun rights organizations, they're very good at claiming easy victories. They're very good when a state does something. It's very easy for them to sit there and say, NRA backed such and such, passes in such and such a state. What they don't have is the staying power for the bare knuckle brawl that this will devolve into and that Minnesota Gun Rights specializes in. So if they're running around the state and they're begging you for money, that money will go off to Virginia. That money will go off into the big coffers of Wayne LaPierre or somewhere else, and it won't be spent in our battle to save our state. So join Minnesota Gun Rights. We've won this fight before. We won it in 2020. We won it in 2019. Hell, we won it in 2018 when Linda Slocum was trying to pass House File 3022. We have stopped. 2023 will be a decade. We have stopped every single gun control bill in the state of Minnesota for almost 10 years, which seemed impossible. Heck, when Minnesota Gun Rights got started, the other gun groups in Minnesota were literally sitting down and making gun control deals with Senate Democrats because, well, we have to give them something. That was the message. That was the message. We have to give Democrats something. If we don't give them something, they're going to take more. That's why Minnesota Gun Rights was born. That's where we came from. That's when we started. And since the day we started, we stopped all the gun control in 2013 after the Sandy Hook shooting, and we have stopped it all ever since. Not me, you, Mark, Gina, Paul, Lori, Yeah, the 129,000 people who sent emails into the Capitol in 2019. We've shut it all down. And this is what the left has to contend with, and we are going to fight them tooth and nail. So, no, I do not believe for a moment that we are in for a Virginia situation. I don't believe for a moment that Tim Walz and his cronies in the legislature have the votes to ram through all of their gun control without severe resistance and without severe political penalties when it's all said and done. So I wanted you to know that this fight is not over. Hope is not lost. We can win. I think we will win. We are going to work tirelessly. Minnesota Gun Rights has been staffing up. We've been bringing on more fighters, more volunteers, more people with tremendous competence and skill to help with this fight and to help lead this political army forward. And so, to some degree, I'm very excited about the 2023 legislative session. And we're going to do everything we can to shut this down. So Mark says, we got your back, Ben. We have your back, Mark. I know you're a member of Minnesota Gun Rights. You have been for a long time. Guys, in the days ahead, I'll be asking you to do a lot of different things. The first thing I'll ask you today is to take the URL from this video, whether it's on YouTube or on Facebook, send it to your friends, send it to your family, ask them to watch it. Too many gun owners have been sitting on the sidelines for a long time. It's time for that to end. It's time for everyone to get in the fight. I know times are hard. I know finances are difficult right now. I know our economy sucks. Thank you, Joe Biden. It's a difficult situation to be in, but we can win if we join in, if we fight together, guys. So I want you first to share this video with all your family and friends. Ask them to watch it. Ask them to get on board. And then I want you to go to mgralerts.com. mgralerts.com. And I'd like you, if you would, to send that link to your family and friends, or sign up 5 of your closest pro-gun buddies, family, friends, beer drinking buddies. I don't care who it is. Sign them up to start getting the Minnesota Gun Rights emails. So far, we've not been censored on email. We can say what we want to say. We can mobilize gun owners, give critical information, need to know on the ground in St. Paul information about what is going on and what we need to do to win. So sign them up. That's mgralerts.com. Get on board with that, and share this video. And then third of all, join or renew with Minnesota Gun Rights for 2023. You can go to joinmgr.com, or if you're already a member, and we're not quite ready to do membership renewals for the next year, you can go to donate, the number 2, mgr.com. Donate to mgr.com. Make a contribution to our fight. Help us gear up, because it's going to be a hell of a fight. But we're already making our target list. We're already laying the groundwork, laying our plan to win. And so in the future, we're going to be giving you a lot more updates, a lot more information, phone numbers, email addresses, all of the things to get a hold of these politicians in St. Paul and shut this down. Paul says maybe we should do another rally. That's very possible. That's very possible. So all of that stuff, we're going to know more as days go on. We're working with our allies in the legislature. But Tuesday was a tough night. We lost some good fighters. Eric Mortensen, the radical left, they didn't like Eric. He was a huge, huge Second Amendment proponent. Got swept out. Oh, and we're going to talk more about some of the other races, but we got some big fighters. Some big fighters came in. Bill Liskey won his Senate race in Senate District 58. Others did as well. Nathan Wiesenberg won his race in Senate District 10. We've got some fighters in St. Paul. There's some in the House as well. So we have allies. We're making a plan. We're laying the groundwork, like I was saying, with our new, like I said, we brought on more staff. We've brought on more volunteers, and we are getting well positioned to lead this fight in 2023. So if you're talking to your friends, if you're talking to your family, if you're talking to your buddies, and they're sitting there going, OMG, OMG, we're screwed, we're screwed. No, we'll get revenge for what they did to us. We'll get revenge for what they've done to our friends, to our rights, to our freedoms. Like I said, Minnesota Gun Rights never forgets. Never forget. We have used votes that are 5, 8 years old to target anti-gun politicians who thought that they were safe, but they were not safe because we knew what they did. So we can win this if we stick together, if we band together. We can win this fight in 2023. We can shut down the gun control agenda. But if we sit here and go, we're screwed, it's done, MGR's toast, well, then we are screwed. But I don't think that's going to happen. Minnesota Gun Rights has never done that before. Our members and our supporters, we've never done that before. So we are MGR Nation. We have beaten all of the odds for a decade. We have stopped gun control and made the defeat of gun control national news. How is it that Minnesota has not passed a red flag law yet? How is it that Minnesota hasn't passed universal background checks? It was supposed to. No, it wasn't supposed to. You thought it was, but you ran smack headlong into the MGR wall. Pop! And that's what's going to happen in 2023. So, guys, I love you. I'm going to be back with a lot more information. Join up with us. Join MGR.com. Make a contribution to this fight. And I think we can win this. But we have to fight together. Nobody else is going to do it for us. That dumb, lazy Rob over at the Gun Owners Caucus is even now super gluing his lips to the backside of leadership in the legislature. It's gross. It's embarrassing. They will not fight for us. They will not win for us. We will. You and me, we're going to win. So get on board. Share this video with your family and friends. Enjoy the rest of your Friday night. I love you. God loves you. We'll be back with more action items. Keep your head up.